Loaded
Sport.
Sport.
Does he sit second, then?
No, I don't think he does. I think Kevin Keegan probably sits second.
Oh my God, what a scandal.
Austin Eckler versus the Cards. Go and fuck the lot of you.
God, Eckler.
You make me like I'm some sort of cameo, like I've come in and go, hand out the bag, England to win.
Hello and welcome to episode 43 of Loaded Sport, where today we are going to be reviewing last weekend's sport in action as well as looking towards this weekend's sport in action, including Lock of the Week, the listener lock-in included in that as well. We've also got another edition of Kempy's Combat Corner. A lot has been going on in the Premier League and the return of the NFL. We're just a couple of weeks away from the NFL draft taking place. Joining me to go through it, I'm hoping first of all that his hamstrings, his calves are feeling much better after yesterday's footballing performance. Sam, how are you doing, mate?
Terrible, thank you very much. I enjoyed it, mate. Back at football for the first time in, how long's it been? 2 or 3 months, maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
I really enjoyed it, but I am definitely suffering for it today. Tears down back of both my calves, but we move, don't we? We move. On the way up.
We do. And joining us also from the opposition side, the winning side, if you will, Mr. Kemp, how are you doing?
Mr. White, man with the mic. And even though Sam tried to break my legs and break my back at the same time after a 50-50 challenge, I'm very well, thank you. But that's what happens when you go against the big boys. Yeah. Thankfully, I lived to tell the tale. But Mr. White, man with the mic, how are we both doing?
Glorious, mate. Glorious. You won't do that again, will you?
Oh, I'll do it every single week, mate. You know I will. You know I will, for a fact.
Yeah.
Every single chance he's got. Joining us then to kick things off with the locks for this week, the 14th person to have a go at the listener lock-in. Sean, welcome to Loaded Sport.
Thank you very much. 14th
yes,
on the
Shawnee.
best is what you mean to say there.
Yes, Shawnee.
That's it, mate. Starters mean to go on straight.
Thierry Henry, the greatest footballer in the Premier League history, wore number 14. Is Sean going to be the greatest lock picker? The lock picker. Number 14.
Did you just say that Thierry Henry was the best footballer ever in the Premier League?
We've started.
That is some shout. That's a bit.
Is it? I thought that was general consensus. To be fair,
debatable.
No.
It is debatable.
I'm not. I'm not
massive.
suggesting he's not one of the best, but I wouldn't say the best. That's
Who's
a
better?
big old shout.
Who's better?
All right, put me on the spot. That wasn't in the lock questions that you previously said.
No, it's not. Who's better? I'm putting you on the spot here and asking you.
Well, what are you judging Thierry Henry?
Overall goals, assists, his skills, his ability.
You're just judging my cock size here, aren't you?
If you're looking at overall, you've got to look at Lampard's got to be up there. What was it? 23 goals a season ish from midfield. That's not to be sniffed at.
He
weren't even best English midfielder at the time. They were two ahead of him.
It's sure my man here with Lampard.
He wants to be, doesn't he? Fucking wants to be.
You've got look at Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes.
God, these are some. You're going for pure longevity aren't you?
I'll take Giggs. The amount of arguments I've had with my mates, Giggs versus Bale.
What?
I've had a few arguments about that. So.
Nowhere near best ever.
He's nowhere near best ever in Premier League, I must admit. But
that's what I mean. That's just what I'm saying.
Adam, one word answer from you both. Best player in Premier League history. Sam first.
In terms of peak quality, it was a short span. I'm going Ronaldo.
I think that's that. Tough question. I feel like part of me does want to put Paul Scholes in there. I think he was very underrated whilst he was in the Premier League.
But while simultaneously being very highly rated.
No, I think which speaks to a lot of people.
Which speaks to his ability. Because he was very highly rated, but he was still underrated.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that. Yeah.
Well, then one word answer, prick.
I'd probably have to go with Henry.
I
probably would, yeah. Now, the guy, when he was playing for Arsenal, was just on a different level to anybody else he was up against.
I hope your locks are better than your pick there, Sean, because you've had a bad start.
I didn't pick anyone. I just said, what about me?
Sat on fence, hasn't he? It's called you out and sat on fence.
He's got splinters, hasn't he, bless him?
I'd go someone at the back me. I'd go someone like bloody Ashley Cole or someone. Just to be different.
The greatest ever.
Definitely being different by going Ashley Cole.
The greatest ever Premier League player is Ashley Cole. I've heard
Adam,
that
can you get minus points in your listener lock-in?
I think we're about to find out for the first time.
It's got to be a
Before-
podcast first, isn't it? That actually called greatest ever Premier League player.
I
Clip
mean,
that.
whoa, I'm not saying he was. I was just saying I'm picking a random name out of the hat there.
I don't even think he was the best Cole,
Look,
was he?
It's all right, mate. It's
all I'm
clickbait.
saying-
No, we weren't.
I say it's clickbait, mate. We'll take it. We'll take
I tell you
it.
what, I'll lock mine in. I'd go someone like Roy Keane. I just loved Roy Keane. I just loved him. I'm not even a Man United fan. I'm from Birmingham, but I just loved Roy Keane. I think he was just awesome. I just love that tenacity about him.
Quality pundit too, to be fair.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right, before we do get underway with this week's locks, we'll just do a quick review of last week's, including the locks that Carl B went for and the score predictions as well. So with the locks, Skin went for Peterborough, which did not come in. I went for Sheffield Wednesday, hoping they'd turn their fortunes around. That also did not come in. Sam went for Burnley to get their victory at the top of the Championship. That didn't happen. So, Kemp, well done. You selecting Barnsley is the only lock that was correct last week.
It's bad from us, that. Really bad.
I knew Barnsley wouldn't let me down.
On to the scorers. Sam, we'll start with yours as it's the most predictable, and that is Erling Haaland, who did not play, but we knew you were going for him anyway. Kemp, you went for Mahrez, who didn't score. I went for Connor Chaplin to score for Ipswich against Derby. He did score, and I think that was quite early on as well. And, of course, Skin went for Mullin for Wrexham, who, of course, did score as well. On to the wild cards. Skin went for Manchester United to get the win. That did not happen. I went for Fulham, who, despite taking a 1-0 lead, fell to a 2-1 defeat. Sam went for Nottingham Forest to get the win. And Kemp went for his beloved Sheffield United, who did him a favour and meant that he got the highest score this week with 2 out of 3. So well done, Kemp.
Well done, Kempy.
Sometimes picking where your heart works.
It does.
Here we go.
Very, very rarely, but it does.
So Carl B joined us, and he had the challenge of taking top spot, which is currently occupied by 2 people with a score of 3. His lock was for Arsenal to win, and that did happen. So that's a point on the board for him. He also went for Saka to score, who did not take the penalty. He wasn't on the field to take a penalty, and therefore didn't score. His wild card was for Fleetwood to get the win. That did not happen either. So his 3 score predictions. He went Forest to beat Wolves 2-1. Didn't happen. Went for Palace to lose 1-0 at home to Leicester. Did not happen. And he went for West Ham to beat Southampton by 2-1. That also did not happen, which means Carl B finished on a score of 1 out of 6, which places him firmly in the relegation zone of our lock-ins.
Would expect nothing less from a Forest fan.
We would not. So, Sean, you're aware of, obviously, the concept of the listener lock-in. Are you confident with some of your selections?
Absolutely not. I'm terrible. I'm a Birmingham City fan. I can't predict anything.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the Birmingham City aspect then. So what is it that drew you to supporting Birmingham City?
My whole family do. We're from a little village called Acots Green, which is a stone's throw away from Smallheath, well, technically we're in Bordesley Green, but everyone else says we're in Smallheath.
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders, although, yeah, they were Birmingham City. The garrison still stands.
Is it?
Yeah, so I think the story behind the garrison is a Singapore businessman bought it thinking this will be a great investment. We'll do a Peaky Blinders themed bar, blah, blah, forgetting that it's in Bordesley Green. So he did this really high-priced cocktail Peaky Blinders bar and it. Wondered why it failed.
Just collapsed.
Yeah, opposite, but like near it is Europe's first drive-through chippy, Big John's. That tells you all you need to know.
Brilliant.
But yeah, no.
Drive-through chippy, by the way. What an idea that is. Why that took off?
Oh mate, Big John's first ever drive-through chippy in Europe, and the portions are massive. Like
Big John there.
Yeah, Big John's. What a place.
Big fan.
So how are you feeling of Birmingham's season so far?
Have we got all night, or we're just? Do you know what? Start of the season, we did that thing. John Eustace got the team together. We played some brilliant football, kept it simple. Very much like a Leicester City type story. Like we were favourites to be relegated, and they were just playing out of their skin for each other. And every single Blues fan that I spoke to, at the first 3 or 4 games, we were like, let's just not get carried away. Let's just enjoy it. By late September and October, we're getting promotion. We're gonna challenge Burnley and Sheffield. Like it's gonna be a great season. we're in and around it, in amongst it. World Cup happens and we just fall off. And I think the majority of that is the squad depth. There is no depth to our squad, so one injury just absolutely messes up, and then one became two, and then before we know it, we're back fighting relegation.
How's our boy Christian Biliak? How's he been playing?
Oh, we absolutely love him. One of our own, isn't he?
Class, isn't he? He is class, to be fair. We were quite thankful. We were quite thankful that he took him off our hands because we couldn't afford his wages. Obviously, we bought him off Arsenal. I think we still owe Arsenal the transfer fee for him, but we couldn't afford him in League One. But his classmate. His only issue is he was quite injury prone for us. So
he's done all right for us. He's played most. He had a bit of a wobble after the World Cup, but he's. Do you know what I love about Christian Bielik? He just loves football. Like the best story I've got of him was recently. There was a ball that came in 50-50, and I can't remember who's. I think QPR put a foot in, and Bielik put his head in. And There's a photo of him where he's like scrunching his face, and you can see two teeth out like I've left his mouth.
Oh God!
Yeah, he's just a boy. He just loves football, and that's why we love him.
Hope you buy him off us. To be fair, for a decent wage, could do it money.
We've got no money. Our owners are terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick things off with the lock then. So, your team, your selection, if you will, Sean. Any game from Friday through Monday, who you are most confident is going to pick up a win?
I'm actually going to go with my heart with this one. I think after Reading's points deduction, they're having a terrible season. We're coming off the back of a big win, 1-0 win. So we kept a clean sheet. John Ruddy's an absolute machine in goal at his age. I'm going to go for a Birmingham win to beat Reading tomorrow.
Birmingham on Friday. Okay. So, having spun the wheel, the first name out is Sam.
Hey. Stuck for two at minute. You know what? I'm going to save you all some time here, and I'm just going to gear you up for the fact that I have literally gone all Premier League for my lock, scorer, and wildcard this week. So
I've
been quite short-sighted on my predictions, really. But the one I've gone for is Man United at home against Everton. I think they're quite desperate for a win. I know they beat Brentford 1-0 last night with Rashford. I think they're heavily relying on Rashford at the minute as well. I think Everton at home is a prime win. They've been good at home, to be fair, but they just seem to have dropped off in form. Obviously, that Newcastle defeat were quite a bad defeat. They played really poorly as well. I think they'll bounce back at home against Everton.
Okay. Up next is me, and my selection is Aston Villa to win at home to Nottingham Forest. Villa are making a late surge for European football. Forest are shit. So as far as I'm concerned, I think that's going to go in Villa's favour.
That's my backup, to be fair. Can't knock that one.
So Kemp, over to you.
Yeah, I am also going to stick with the Premier League, if that's all right with everybody. I am going to stay in a similar type of vein, but I'm going to go with Fulham at home to West Ham. West Ham got absolutely spanked by Newcastle last night. I think they're only going one way, and Fulham, apart from the capitulation against Man United, have been doing pretty all right. So Fulham are my lock at home against West Ham.
Okay.
Mitrovic is out there winning for the rest of the season.
He is, but it's West Ham are pretty poor, and I think Fulham they've got other options.
Fair enough.
Yep. So Sean, your goal scorer, who do you think is going to get a goal this weekend?
Oh, I'm going to go Prem, and I think I'm going to go Martinelli. I think he's due a goal now. He's a bang on form, and this season he's him, Saka, and working with them. So I'm going to go Martinelli for Arsenal. Yeah,
that's it. They're against Scousers, aren't they? Liverpool,
yeah.
Ooh.
Give me nothing but pleasure if I absolutely batter the Scousers.
Oh, mate, you and me both.
Pleasure.
In your defence, he'll be up against Trent, won't he? So, I think he'll have probably a hatful of chances there. Not the best defender, is he?
He's terrible. Terrible defending.
Yeah, I'm being polite there.
So in the snake format then, so Kemp, back round to you for your scorer.
Yeah, Sam, apologies, Erling Haaland.
Hey, automatic. Someone's got to take it. What are you drinking there, Kemp? Is that Prami?
You know me too well.
Nice. Sea green bottle it had to be. I've got a little rum and cola myself.
Yeah, I clocked
Havana
that.
7.
Clocked that. I didn't start with it, but then I saw you at Little Rummy, and I thought, well, I'll get waitress to sort me out a beer. So
Gone a bit cancelled though, and I've gone full pint glass with rum and coke in. So
not quite sure about that. We'll have to move on quickly away from that.
Right, Sam. No, it's me first, actually.
Mate,
I'll take that. Yes, it is me. I'm going for the Kempy special, and with Villa to beat Forest, I'm going to go with Ollie Watkins to score.
Mate. Oh, my first choice. I think it's good in that one.
He is on fantastic form. I saw an interview where he was told by Unai Emery just to not come back and defend, just stay up front and just keep trying to find yourself a bit of space, and eventually those chances will come, and they have been, and he's been taking them. So I think he's played a huge part in Villa's turnaround in their season. So I've got him to score against a relatively weak Forest defence.
Yeah. Now mine is a bit risky with obviously Kempy, as he said, Haaland. I had Ollie Watkins was number one. I hadn't even backed Haaland this week. I've gone for the guy that replaced him last weekend and bagged, and I'm going to stick with Julian Alvarez. I know he's probably not going to start the game, but I think he will appear at some point. I think Southampton are there for a 0.5 past him at minute. So I'm going to back Julian Alvarez. It's probably the only time I've ever backed someone that actually is going to start on the bench. I'm not confident he's going to score.
Nice. Okay. So Sean, on to your wild card. So as long as the bookies see these as the least favourite, you can have them.
I'm over this one. I'm tempted because I keep an eye on the knots on both Forest and County scores for work. I'm tempted to go County on Monday against Wrexham. It's a big shout. It's a big shout.
It's what a wild card is, mate. It's what a wild card is, to be fair.
Do you know, I'm gonna go County versus Wrexham. I think it's a massive game. I think if County can win, there's a chance we have like a last day of the season gamble here for the title.
Unbelievable. That would be unbelievable.
Yeah, it'd be unbelievable. So I'm going to go County over Wrexham.
Like it. I am going to back Arsenal away at Liverpool. Believe it or not, 29-20 with the bookies. So I think after Liverpool's performance against Manchester City, granted City, obviously City are City, but I will, quite confident that Arsenal are going to go to Anfield and they're going to, I don't think they win often there actually. So I think they're going to want a point to prove and finally get that monkey off the back. And I think this season's the perfect season to do that. So I think Arsenal away at Liverpool for me.
Interesting you've just picked that one because I've just been looking at the odds to go for that and it doesn't qualify. I'm looking at one where Arsenal are the favourites.
29-20 there.
I've got them 11-8 and Liverpool 15-8.
Ooh, got to rejig then. I'm going to go
big swing.
Well, I have got a backup ready, so I'm going to go Palace away at Leeds then. That'll be mine. Lock that one up.
That's a fair shout. I'm going to take a huge risk on this one, and I'm going to go with Wolves to win at home against Chelsea.
Wolves, new manager.
New manager for Chelsea, which we'll come on to a little bit later. But I still think that Wolves are going to have enough to at least get a point. I know that doesn't count for the wild card, but to see them maybe sneaking a goal and getting a cheeky 1-0 win at home against Chelsea, like we just say, have been out of sorts all season, haven't they?
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to back against Chelsea at the minute, but Super Frank's there to do one thing and one thing only. But we'll come to that later.
Super Frank.
You're fucking backing him as best Premier League player ever, you. Super Frank.
I just said he qualified. I didn't say nothing about his managerial prowess.
What managerial fucking prowess. I'm going Brighton and Hove Albion away against Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs have been pretty shocking recently and all season, to be fair, lost against Sheffield United, so that tells you everything. And obviously Brighton away they are, so Brighton away at Spurs on Saturday afternoon.
Why not?
Okay, those are the locks and the wild cards. So on to the second half of the list of the lock-in. So we're going to give you 3 fixtures. All you've got to do is give me a score prediction. You have to get the score correct to get the point. And as ever, it includes the team that you support. On this occasion, with it being Easter weekend, we've got 2 games, a Friday and a Monday. So we'll start with the Friday game, Reading against Birmingham.
I'm going to go 2-1 Blues for that one. I don't think we've got enough to not concede, but I think we've got enough to beat them. Old Kadira down the wing. Oof, frightening.
Yeah, and you've gone for them, of course, for your lock as well. That's fair.
Yeah.
So Birmingham against Stoke.
This is tough, you know. Our home form is worse than our away form. If that's even a thing. Joe, I'm gonna back us. I'm gonna believe. I'm gonna go a 1-0 win, clean sheet for John Ruddy.
Nice. At home to Stoke on Monday. So the last one is Burnley against Sheffield United, also being played on Monday.
I've been back and forth about this all day. I just think Burnley are going to wipe the floor with them. I think they're going to just push them aside.
What's your thoughts there?
Can't say I disagree.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. I don't massively disagree, to be honest. I can see it.
Can I have a good shot?
I'm gonna go 2-0 Burnley. That's what I'm gonna do.
Ooh,
Nice. Okay.
They're at home, you know.
Yeah.
under the lights.
That is fair. Top two in the championship facing off. So your lock is Birmingham to win on Friday against Reading. You've got Martinelli to score on Sunday against Liverpool. You've got Notts County to beat Wrexham on Monday as your wild card. Your scores, you've gone Birmingham to beat Reading by 2-1 on Friday. You've gone Birmingham to beat Stoke 1-0 on Monday. And then Burnley to beat Sheffield United by 2-0 on Monday. Yeah, there we go. You happy with them? You confident?
I am. I'm surprised. Surprisingly, I am confident for a Birmingham fan. Yeah, really, I don't know why. what this newfound confidence has come from. Maybe it's talking to you lot, but I don't know.
You got no right, have you? To be fair.
No, I have got absolutely zero right to be that confident. We're going to win 3 back-to-back with 2 clean sheets.
God bless you. God loves a trier.
You're not complaining then. Sean, just to finish things off, thank you very much for joining us. But the last question is, who is your sporting hero and why?
That's a good one. My sporting hero. Do you know what? It's actually a bit of a weird one. My sporting hero is
Ashley
a
Cole.
winner of the... No, do you know what? I don't even know why I picked him because, like, he's not, like you said, he's not even the best Cole. But anyway, he's it's a Tom Finney Award, the EFL trophy. It's a guy called Steve Fletcher who played for Bournemouth, like when they were down and out and all the rest of it, and now he coaches at Bournemouth. And it's because I think he ruptured his ACL like 3 times, and every time he's come back from it, and he's just changed and adapted his game, and just still managed to be a club legend. He played into his 40s. There's a lot for charity. And he's an ambassador for the club. And the fact that he's been there since he was 20, 22, 23, and he's still there now as a coach. What a boy. That's what football's about.
Yeah, he came and spent a year playing for us as well. Met him a couple of times during that time. Top bloke.
Yeah, I've met him a few times, and he has no qualms in standing and chatting about football to anyone. He just loves it, and he'll give you the time of day. And he's, you know what, what a boy.
I love that. You'll never hear that shout out anywhere else. Bless you.
Great show. Sean, thank you very much for joining us. Next week, of course, we'll review your locks and your wild cards, and best of luck to beating the score of 3 to go top of the leaderboard.
I'm going to absolutely hide away next week. Cheers, boys. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Sean. Enjoyed that, mate.
Cheers, Shawnee. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, lads. Bye-bye.
I think it is quite apt that we've all stuck around on the Premier League theme, considering the manager merry-go-round that seems to be taking place at the moment. We'll start by talking about Graham Potter being sacked and Frank Lampard making a return to Chelsea. So, Sam, take it away.
What's the takeaway, mate? I mean, the greatest English manager of all time is coming. I could keep that one up. Couldn't keep it up.
Couldn't even get to end at sentence.
No,
Do you mind
no,
keep it up?
No. Obviously, me and Kempy have had a couple of back and forths. He's definitely got it over me at the minute. I can't deny that. However, the side I'm going to take, the position I'm going to take, if you like, on this one, I don't think it's a bad appointment, right? And I know he's getting slated at the minute. Negative appointment, blah, blah, blah. I just think there's about, 8 games left or something like that. I think who's going to come in with 8 games to go and take this job on? I mean, I know that they're still in Europe. It's a no-brainer for Lampard, obviously. He's dropped on a golden egg here. He's He's obviously going to take it. He's got a chance to try and right some wrongs that obviously when he first left. And I just think club legend, getting back in, he knows he's a caretaker manager. It's almost like a free job interview as such, if you want to class it like that. I think Chelsea will be in a difficult position if he goes on and wins every single game from now to end of season, and it has a good run in Champions League. If they end up in semi-final and they've won 7 out of their 8 last games, I think they're in trouble then, as daft as that sounds, because it's not quite as black and white as what it should be. If he goes and loses 4 and wins 2 and draw 1, it's an easy decision. He's a caretaker. They're going to get rid of him. But I think the only problem I see with this appointment is if he does well, funnily enough. And if he does do well, I think Bowley's got a difficult decision to make. And we've seen what he's like. We've seen he's quite impulsive, quite trigger happy. And he's quite... You can't tell me you wouldn't be too surprised if Lampard did do well. He'd go and drop a 2-year contract at his feet. I wouldn't surprise me in the slightest, to be honest. What do you reckon, Ken?
Yeah, I agree in that respect, in the second thing that you said, in the sense that if Lampard comes in and wins the vast majority of the Premier League games, maybe they sneak into Europa League and they do well in Champions League, I think it's unlikely. I think it's very unlikely. I think he'd have to get to probably the Champions League final and probably win every single Premier League game. I do think it's very, very unlikely. Having said that, it's not impossible. Like you say, Bowley does seem pretty impulsive. Came into the club, sacked Thomas Tuchel after he won a Champions League with them and overall did pretty well. Signed a lot of players that I don't think had Potter's sign off. A lot of players that didn't really make sense. And he's made a lot of decisions that, some people have mentioned it before. It's like he's played Football Manager with some of the things that he's done. So I completely agree with you in that respect. The bit that I don't agree with you on is that it's a good appointment. And the reason why is because, for me personally, even though there's been reports come out, of players saying Hogwarts and Potter behind Graham Potter's back and all that rubbish, I don't understand why now. They lost against Southampton a few weeks ago, and they lost 2-0 or 1-0 at home. And, maybe then. Maybe a few weeks before that. But there's how many games left? 8, 9?
Yeah, it's a bad time, really.
They're not, even if they do win the vast majority or the rest of their games, they're not going to make Champions League.
No.
They're not going to get relegated, let's be honest, because they're just too good and they're just too far away from it all. So the chances are, no matter what, even if you got Pep Guardiola or Alex Ferguson and fucking, whoever in as joint managers, they would be in the same position that they are or were under Potter until the end of the season. They would probably be 8th, 7th, maybe even 6th. And that's where they would be. I understand that Nagelsmann and maybe Luis Enrique probably don't want to come until next season. Get that. So for me, and this happens all the time in Premier League management, who are we kidding if we say that it doesn't? You have a conversation with Luis Enrique behind closed doors. You have a conversation with Nagelsmann behind closed doors. You then have a meeting with Potter and say, right, you've got 8 games now. We hired you at the start of the season. You've got 8 games. If you don't pick up 6 wins out of your last 8 games or 7 wins out of your last 8 games, we're automatically terminating your contract. Even if you do, your performance is still under review. You need to prove to us in this last 8, 9 games as to why you should be here next season, because we've been really patient with you. And you've done nothing. And to be fair, they were quite patient with him compared to probably previous Chelsea managers. There's been Chelsea managers that have been sacked for arguably less.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think he's had enough time myself. I'm always, I'm like. I'm always a big advocate for time.
But this is the thing. This is. I'm sort of agreeing with you in that respect. They can come to him and say, right, we've shown a lot of patience. We are really doing poorly under yourself. You've got till the end of the season, make it work. If it doesn't, we're terminating your contract to the end of the season. You've then had a conversation with Enrique. You've had a conversation with Nagelsmann. You terminate Potter's contract to the end of the season because, let's be honest, nothing was changing. And you get one of those 2 boys in and you start afresh in the summer. This Lampard appointment, it just screams pandering to me. It screams pandering. It's, right, we'll bring a club legend in to tide us over to end of season, bring that passion in, bring that mentality and solidarity, and he's all about Chelsea. It doesn't matter if you're all about Chelsea. He's not going to make them score any more goals than they already are. They've not got a striker. So what's Frank Lampard going to do? He couldn't get him firing when he was manager there before, and he had 84 games at that, and he still couldn't get him in a decent position. So for me, I would have kept Potter until the end of the season, and then gone for Nagelsmann or Enrique early next season. I think to sack him at this time, it's really poor timing. Is Lampard the only manager they could have got? No, they could have got other managers until the end of the season, but Lampard is the one that is probably the easiest deal to do, and they've done it. But for me, I think they should have kept Potter until the end of the season, because what's the worst that could have happened?
Yeah, no, I do agree with that.
You've changed my mind. I did originally think that maybe this was a good appointment for getting Frank Lampard back till the end of the season. I could see why they were doing it. I disagree with you on Lampard didn't really get them firing before. When he was under a transfer embargo, he'd got players that were having to go through the youth system. He'd got players like Tammy Abraham performing. He'd got the squad playing well. I think it was when it came to his recruitment that really let him down and cost him his job in the end. I didn't agree that he should have been sacked. I thought what he'd done before then deserved a bit longer in the job. You've convinced me that maybe it could have made a bit more sense, say, to Potter, look, you've got till the end of the season, shows what you can do, and have those chats behind closed doors with potential replacements. But I don't think it's the worst decision to go for. Like you say, they're not going down. They're not going into the Champions League. They might make it into Europe, in the Conference League or in the Europa League now. So there's those opportunities available for them. I don't think it's the worst thing to get these players firing again under Frank Lampard, a club legend, because let's be fair, he is.
No, I'm not disputing that, but these players don't give a shit about Frank Lampard. Mason Mount, maybe. Who else? Who else gives a shit? Reece James, maybe.
Some of the younger players.
Gives a shit? There's been such a high player turnover since Lampard was there last time. These players don't give a shit about Frank Lampard. They don't fucking care.
Yeah, but you said that. You just said that there. There was such a high amount of turnover in players. These are new players now. They're not. They weren't part of that regime he were under. So it's again, you could get that.
It's like a fresh start for him.
Yeah, it's almost not. I wouldn't say a fresh start because it's not. It's more of a fresh start for the players that are there that weren't coached under him. They don't know what he's like. They don't know if it were. Obviously, it must have been some kind of negative atmosphere when he was there. Obviously, towards the end, but. They weren't a part of that. Mudryk and all them sort of players. So it could go well. They were scoring goals under him. I do know he was scoring goals under him. They just couldn't defend, if you remember. It was Tuchel that managed to come in after one game and managed to turn him into defensive juggernauts overnight for some reason. But yeah,
I'll tell you one thing that this move is. If it's nothing else, it's an absolute fucking glorious opportunity for Frank Lampard. He will have, when they offered him this job until the end of the season, he must have been salivating because he failed at Everton miserably, and you can't disagree with that. He just did.
No, you're right.
Chelsea again, he did okay, I guess, under a transfer embargo, but a 52% win ratio is not good enough for a Chelsea manager. They want to be winning things, and ultimately it's just not good enough. Got sacked for that. And Derby, as we've discussed before, I think he did a very average job. So with his reputation coming out of that Everton job, probably the lowest it's ever been in terms of his managerial ability, if he does come in, gets 5 or 6 wins between now and the end of the season, it's really going to put him back in that shop window for a club next season, maybe mid-Premier League, top-end Championship, to come in for Lampard and get him his managerial career started again. So good move for Lampard. I don't think he'll make the most of it, but we've been through that, so we don't need to do that again, surely.
No, that's a fair assessment. He wasn't. Graham Potter wasn't the only one sacked this week, though. Brendan Rodgers also left Leicester after what has been a very difficult time at the King Power Stadium, taking into account that Leicester are now fighting for safety down near relegation after just a couple of years ago. Say a couple of years ago, it'd be about 7 years ago, was it now, that they won the Premier League? Was it 2016?
2016, yeah.
2016, yeah. 7 years ago that they won the Premier League. A lot of those players obviously left now. Who do Leicester look towards? There's been loads of people saying that maybe that's where Graham Potter goes next. Where do you think Leicester have to look towards now to go for the next step in maybe even regaining Premier League security?
You know what? I know Kempy just shook his head there. I don't hate the Graham Potter appointment. I think what he did at Brighton was unbelievable, and obviously the current coach now is still reaping rewards from that. I think a smaller club with a relatively healthy budget. Didn't sign a fucking player in summer, to be fair, so I don't know where I've got that from, but it's a club that's got a bit of clout about them when they want to put their hand in the pocket. So I think Leicester's not too much of a bad fit myself. They need players. Obviously, Vardy's on his back legs now. He's on his way out. But in terms of other candidates, I'll be honest. I haven't really looked into the Leicester job off as much as I did, obviously, with Chelsea and Lampard and Potter's debacle. So yeah, I think Potter would fit, but who knows?
I wasn't, just to go on record, I actually wasn't shaking my head at the Graham Potter appointment. I don't think that'd be the worst shout in the world. I was shaking my head at the sacking of Brendan Rodgers. I think it's very, very unfair and very harsh. I think Brendan Rodgers has done a really good job there. They've sold key players and not signed anyone.
Didn't they win FA Cup under him?
Yeah. Only a couple of seasons ago. And then you look at it, and they've not signed anybody, and they've sold key players. Schmeichel being one of them, an absolute stalwart in goal for them, and their goalkeeper this season has been very, very below par. So I think it's a bad move. I think Rodgers, if they would have got relegated, would have probably left anyway of his own accord. I can't see Brendan Rodgers managing in the Championship personally, but I might be wrong on that one. I think he provided them the best opportunity to survive. 9 games remaining. I think Leicester, they're not in a good spot. Obviously, we're all aware of that. They've got some tough games coming up as well. I think they've got Man City away fairly soon, which is not going to be ideal for them. But they've also got games like Bournemouth at home, which I think is the next game. They've got Wolves at home, Leeds away, Everton at home, West Ham at home. I honestly think Brendan Rodgers keeps them up if he stays. And if they do go down, I feel like they deserve it because they've not signed anyone. They've sold key players, and now they're in the bottom 3 where they kind of deserve to be. In the Premier League, every single season you need to be improving. You can't even stay the same in the Premier League. You stay the same and you go backwards in the Premier League because it gets so much better every single season. So, I think it's a harsh decision. The 2 favourites at the moment, permanent manager-wise, are Rafa Benitez and Graham Potter. Rafa Benitez is 5-2. Graham Potter's 4-1. I think if I was a Leicester fan, I'd probably rather have Graham Potter in there than Rafa. I think he's shown his true colours, to be honest with you now. But I think it's a bad sacking, just like the Chelsea one. And I think they've got a little bit trigger happy. And it's going to be a mistake. And I think Leicester will now go down.
I think they've seen the.
Sorry, Aggie. Do you reckon they've seen the Palace situation with Roy, and do you reckon they've wanted to follow suit there?
Yeah, but the problem is I think Palace did it because they knew Roy was ready to come back.
Well, it was the fixtures ahead, weren't it? It was the fixtures ahead. They knew they had easy fixtures.
Yeah. So they had winnable fixtures, and they also knew that Roy would come in, get them organised, get them playing, sensible football, nothing silly, and just eke out those wins. And that was, I think, Vieira was sacked, and again, do I agree with the sacking? Maybe not. But actually, when you look at it, they've got Roy on sidelines, who's been there before, done a job before, knows the club, knows a lot of the players. Excuse me, to be fair. So I don't think that was a bad appointment. I think it was a fairly bad sacking, but not a bad appointment. Whereas, and that makes the sacking less bad, if that makes sense. Whereas you look at these 2 situations with Chelsea and with Leicester, it seems as though they've pulled the trigger and now they're like, oh, shit, now what do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah, that brings me on to the point I just mentioned then, that I think they've panicked a little bit. Like you say, they've seen the Crystal Palace situation. But with the fixtures ahead, Kemp, I've got to agree. Brendan Rodgers keeps them up. They don't have to worry about getting relegated. They can rebuild and get ready to go again next season with a much stronger squad to try and realise their ambition in the top 10 of the Premier League, maybe fighting back to get back into Europe.
And I was worried at one point that, just before you carry on, that Forest were going to do the same thing, because there were rumours yesterday that Steve Cooper was going to get sacked. And I feel like they would have been following suit as well and pulling the trigger too early. And it's the same situation with Forest. Nobody's going to do a better job at trying to keep them up than Steve Cooper. And if they do go down, nobody's going to be better at getting them back up than Steve Cooper. So I think they've done well to hold the nerve. And I think Leicester should have potentially held the nerve as well. Sorry, I
think it speaks everything from me personally being a Derby fan and wanting him to get sacked, Steve Cooper. That tells you everything, doesn't it? Because I wanted him to go down, obviously, because I know that he's the best, definitely by far the best chance stayed up. So that speaks everything. I were hoping he would get sacked just for them shooting themselves in the foot. But obviously, I do hope he doesn't, because he doesn't deserve to get sacked. But just being a Derby fan, just being biased, I wouldn't have said
absolutely.
But yeah, no, that like you just mentioned him with Notts Forest. I actually saw something on Sky Sports News earlier. Breaking news: David Moyes wasn't sacked. Sky Sports released it as breaking news that David Moyes will be in charge this weekend. And I thought, is this really what we've come to at this point in Premier League? That Leicester have just sacked their manager, Chelsea have just sacked their manager. I think, isn't Jurgen Klopp now the longest reigning manager in the Premier League?
Eric Ten Hag is now the 9th longest serving manager in the Premier League. I mean, that alone is just absolutely
it's bizarre, isn't it?
Baffling.
And he's been in since the start of the season.
Yeah, terrible.
Makes no sense. So with West Ham, with Nottingham Forest, both now managers close towards getting sacked. The board have obviously said, look, we're happy with what you're doing at the moment. They're not going to come out and say, look, your job's on the line, are they? They'll tell them that behind closed doors. Do you see both Cooper and Moyes being in charge at the end of the season?
One word, yes.
Kemp? We'll come back to Kemp when his internet has sorted itself
I'm really
out.
torn on that. That's a great
there you go, is it?
Oh, shit, sorry. Am I there? Sorry, I didn't realise that my internet had not sorted itself out. Yeah, it's a really tough question. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah. I personally don't see it. I think Moyes is that close now to being sacked at West Ham that I think a loss this weekend and he's gone.
The thing is, though, it's literally like now is the time to make. If they're going to do it, they should have done it now. Like, I know we've laughed at Palace for doing it, we've laughed at Leicester just then for doing it, and Chelsea. I think if you're going to sack a manager to get you saved, you've got to give him at least 8-9 games, haven't you? You can't just say, I'm going to sack him 4 games from time. So I think that's my logic behind him. I think they'd have followed suit by now. I think if that was going to happen, I can't see it. Especially the fact that the Forest have obviously publicly backed Cooper now, and I can't see him. They'd look like absolute idiots if they went back on the word and sacked him a game later. So no, I think they'll both be there by the end of the season. Whether they're still there first game into new season, that's a different question. But
I think Cooper stays, Moyes goes
before the start of next season.
No, I think Cooper stays this season and Moyes goes this season.
Oh, you don't think Moyes will
I
stay
think
end
if
of
West
season?
Ham lose it, I've just changed my mind. I think if West Ham lose at weekend, Moyes is gone. And I think it'll be panic stations. And I think it'll be like, hiya, Rafa Benitez, can you come in and save us?
Yeah, and they don't need it. I think they're just outside relegation at the moment. So has your bottom 3 changed since the last time I asked you, Kemp? Are you still confident it's the same 3 that's going to go down?
I can't remember which 3 I said.
Neither can I, if I've
three
kept it impartial.
I'll tell you what 3 I think now, and you can tell me whether you think it's going to be the same. I think I said Bournemouth, Southampton, and I think I might have said Leeds. Or did I say Forest?
I think Forest's the more likely option than Leeds. I think Leeds will stay up. But if I'm honest, I think Forest will stay up.
My 3 is...
Go on. No, sorry, no. Mine has changed anyway from that. If that's what I said, then it's changed anyway. Because I think it'll be Southampton, I think it'll be Leicester, and actually, to be fair, I think it'll be Bournemouth. I think it'll be the bottom 3 as they are now. If Rodgers would have stayed, I wouldn't have said Leicester in a million years. But I think now Rodgers has gone. I think it'll be the bottom 3 as it stands: Bournemouth, Leicester, Southampton. But the reason I say David Moyes might get the sack is because if Bournemouth get a point and West Ham lose at the weekend, then they're in the bottom 3, and I think that would push the West Ham board over the edge, and they'd get rid of him and they'd panic.
Makes sense. My bottom 3 will be Southampton, Bournemouth, and Forest. I think them 3 will go down.
Okay. I think it's going to be West Ham that falls in with Southampton and Bournemouth. So Southampton, Bournemouth, West Ham are going to be my bottom 3 that I'm going for. And of course, we are just 8 games away in some instances from seeing the end of the Premier League season. So we are going to jump forward now into what I believe is some of the most talking points of the week across any sport in Kempy's Combat Corner.
Oh, another week, another shit show in Kempy's Combat Corner. It's getting to the point now where I have got a bit of MMA to talk about, which is great because MMA is kind of holding the fort for combat sports at the moment, seeing as though boxing is absolutely in the can. So I'll start with the bad, which actually, to be fair, we can put AJ's performance in that little category with the bad. Anthony Joshua returned on Saturday evening. A new dawn is what Matchroom Boxing christened it for Anthony Joshua against Jermaine Franklin at the O2 Arena. I think last week on Kempy's Combat Corner, we all predicted. The three of us predicted the ones that Anthony predicted Anthony Joshua to win, predicted Anthony Joshua to stop Jermaine Franklin. And he didn't, which was very, very disappointing. The level that Jermaine Franklin is at, he's a lot lower of a level than a lot of opponents that Joshua has knocked out in the past. So it's very disappointing to see that not happen. Sam, I know you watched the fight at the weekend. Adam, I'm not sure if you did.
I did.
But Sam, no. So I'll go straight to Sam then. What were your thoughts on the fight of the weekend?
Yeah, not impressive at all. Obviously, I did say on last week's episode that I did think Franklin had caused him some issues. I don't think it was a weird one because I don't think he particularly caused him many problems. It was just AJ couldn't cause him any problems. It was a bit of a stalemate. I mean, I know AJ won on pretty much every round, I'd say, or maybe one in end-it rounds, but it was a really dull performance from AJ. I thought there were no star power, no flashes that we're expecting. Like say, New Dawn, all this is going to come out. He's lumped a load of weight on. This is going to be a quick knockout. This is, put a statement out almost, and it was just none of that. It just fizzled out. And then the after antics is what does it for me. The after the fight antic. What's wrong with the man? He's like a petulant kid. I mean, he's fighting someone here. He's gave him a big payday. Franklin's probably never going to have he won't ever have a fight as big as he has done. And instead of just respecting him and saying, yeah, he's fought well, took him to points, blah, 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 he didn't. He just went down that weird route again where he's got this fucking weird competitive edge on, and I don't know. I don't like it. I just think he's coming across as a bit of an arsehole, to be honest.
And it's competitive in the worst sense because it's not competitive in that, it was a really tough fight. I'm so annoyed that I couldn't beat you, but you did well and whatever. It's like you said, I think petulance is
malicious more than competitive were a bad word, to be honest. More malicious and unnecessary.
Yeah, it's just petulant. You summed it up with petulant. Franklin, I think I said something and AJ might have tapped the back of his head, and then it all started and they got into a bit of a ruckus, and I think Tony Bellew fancied a little bit, but
we're taking him on it.
Roch were recording it. Go on, Tony. Go on, smack there with his headphones on, comfy in his chair. Brilliant. Go on, Tony. Which was fantastic.
Best thing Carl Froch has ever done that.
That's exactly what I would do in that situation as well. So I can't blame Carl Froch for that one. I've said it 1,000 times. Slow, robotic, one-dimensional. That is what Anthony Joshua is. What Anthony Joshua had before, I would say before the Andy Ruiz fight, where he got knocked out, he was unbeaten. He'd been knocked down once by Klitschko, but he'd come back in that fight and he knocked Vladimir Klitschko out, one of the greatest heavyweights of our time. So he no confidence loss. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. He owns 3 belts. It's fantastic. It's all going brilliantly well. But Anthony Joshua is a very good hammer, but he is the worst nail you've ever seen in your entire life. Since that Andy Ruiz shock defeat, his confidence is being drained. It seems like his willingness to go forward has been drained. And he did the right thing in that second Andy Ruiz fight. He boxed on the outside. He boxed well. He didn't let Andy Ruiz get back into it with his fast hands and his short stance and his sort of tucked in style. He fought a good fight. But then since then, he doesn't seem to be able to get out of that groove. I think he's had 1 knockout since then. I think it might have been Povetkin, perhaps, since then. And that's it. And it's like really strange how that one moment in time seems to have changed the entire outlook of his career, because obviously since that Povetkin fight, first fight against Usyk lost, second fight against Usyk lost. He didn't win in either of those fights.
No.
He wasn't close to winning either of those fights, no matter what Matchroom and Eddie Hearn will tell you. He wasn't close to winning the second fight either. And I think it's just confidence. I think he's lost all of his confidence. I think he's lost all his belief that he can go and knock somebody out, because some of the shots he was hitting Usyk with, they're hitting with a big body shot, and Usyk felt it and sort of winced a little bit and covered up. And you'll see that on the second fight replay. But he seems to have lost all confidence in his power and lost all confidence in his abilities. He's changed trainer 3 times. And it just seems like he's maybe looking outward a little bit rather than kind of looking himself in the mirror in that respect. So I'm not surprised it went the way it went. To be quite honest with you, I had a lot more faith in Anthony Joshua than I thought I probably would have. So credit to Matchroom for that one, because they built, they suckered me in with that one most definitely. I thought he was going to get it done, but I thought he was going to get it done via knockout fairly early because of Franklin's ability. Jermaine Franklin is not good. He's not good. He put on a good performance on Saturday night, but he's not good. He's never beaten anybody who is ever going to get a sniff of even a continental title. He's not going to get anywhere near. So, the fact that he lost a close points decision to Dillian Whyte, that's how they built this fight up. They said, he lost a close points decision to Dillian Whyte. It's not going to be easy for AJ. And everybody thought, it should be easy for AJ. And it wasn't. And that kind of gives you an idea as to probably where Joshua's at. I've said it before. There's at least 4 heavyweights in the world that are better than Anthony Joshua at the moment, and maybe even more after that performance. So after that, does he fight Dillian Whyte? Does he fight Joe Joyce? I think him fighting Joe Joyce would be a really, really big mistake. And I think he'd get absolutely banked.
I'd love that fight.
I'd like it, but Joe Joyce would jab his face off for 12 rounds. And I'm not sure it's a good fight for Anthony Joshua to take. I think in terms of a promotional piece, the Dillian Whyte fight makes the most sense. You have him fight Dillian Whyte. I think he has still got enough to beat Dillian Whyte because Dillian Whyte is very, very, he's diminished big time. That performance against Tyson Fury was pitiful. His performance against Jermaine Franklin wasn't good either. So I think Joshua gets a points decision win over Dillian Whyte as well. And then you could potentially set up a big fight with Fury or Joyce. But like we've said before, we said it before this fight, it doesn't really change anything. Even if that fight does happen, we can't see Anthony Joshua winning that, and I can never see Anthony Joshua being world champion again. So that's the first bit of bad when it comes to boxing. Second bit of bad, which is, to be fair, an actual bit of bad and even worse bad in the boxing world this week. Amir Khan fought, as many of you will remember, in February of 2020 against Kell Brook for, it wasn't for any titles, but it was both at their time their retirement fights. The fight was looking as though it was going to be on in potentially Kell Brook's peak and Khan's sort of back end of Amir Khan's peak. 2 British fighters, similar sort of way. They've sort of going backward and forward for many, many years, and it never got over the line. In boxing, what always happens, the fights happen too late. It happened too late. It happened in 2022 when both of them were very diminished. But it happened, and Kell Brook wiped the floor with him. And after that fight, they both retired. Since then, Kell Brook has decided pretty much to come out of retirement. I think I agree with that decision. Kell Brook is a little bit too young to come out of the squared circle at the moment, and I think he got himself in a little bit of trouble. Got filmed taking some illegal drugs on camera, and had some shitty mates for that. So it has decided to come back to the world of boxing, which is fantastic. But Amir Khan has retired from boxing, and it's probably a good job he did, because this week it has been revealed that the UK anti-doping agency has stated that a small trace amount of ostarine was detected in Amir Khan's test results on the day of the fight. So to give you a bit of context, after the fight's taken place, one of the things that both of the fighters will do before they leave the arena on the night, and they have to do this, it's in the laws of boxing, it's in the laws of the British Boxing Board of Control, they have to take a drug test before they leave the arena. In that drug test, it was found that Amir Khan tested positive for a trace amount, like I say, of ostarine. Ostarine has similar effects to testosterone. A lot of bodybuilders use it. It's a form of SARMs. It's not one of the, how do I put it, hardest and maybe most effective muscle building drugs, but it's most definitely up there. And obviously it's a banned substance with the British Boxing Board of Control and the UK Anti-Doping Agency. The only problem with that being is that we were not told that this had happened until I think it might have been the 3rd or the 4th of April 2023. So 28, how many months is that after? 14 months? 14 months after the drug test was taking place, we then found out that Amir Khan had tested positive. Now, that in anybody's metric is scary. It's worrying, because it means that, you know, a lot of fighters, especially up and coming fighters, they'll have a fight once every 2 months, once every 3 months. So there could quite easily be a fighter that could fit 5 fights in that time period. 6 months ago, Eddie Hearn was trying to put together a Amir Khan Manny Pacquiao fight. Had no idea that this had happened. It initially came out, and the British Boxing Board of Control allegedly weren't made aware. The promoter for the fight, Ben Shalom, and boxer on Sky Sports, allegedly weren't aware. It's then come out since then that the British Boxing Board of Control knew about this positive test result, and they didn't say anything about it. UKAD didn't release a statement about it until recently, obviously this week, 14 months after the fact. And we could have been very, very much in a position where Amir Khan could have been fighting again when he's had a failed drug test and nobody was made aware. It comes straight after the Conor Benn situation. It's a mess. It's a different testing body, a different organisation, but it still just highlights the problems within boxing, within the drug testing side of boxing, and within the lack of ability of the British Boxing Board of Control or UKAD to effectively test fighters and make sure
Can I just
that
ask you a
everybody's
question on this subject?
Mm.
So, on the British Boxing Board of Control, am I not right in thinking that it should be confidential, their findings? So how would that go about? Obviously, you said that hypothetically there was almost a fight put together.
Yeah.
At what point should they step in and say, we know something that's going to potentially hinder this fight?
Nobody knows.
Right. That's the issue?
Well, that's not. It's one of many issues. You know, what the big issue is that it happened in February 2022. We're now saying April 2023, and we've only just found out.
Yeah.
You know, even the promoter is claiming that he didn't know. Now that's to be, you know, the promoters are informed. The way that the process is meant to take place is that the fighters will take a test. UKAD will conduct that test and test the findings, test the samples provided by the fighters. UKAD is the UK Anti-Doping Agency. They will then inform the British Boxing Board of Control of any irregularities. They don't say anything if it's a negative test. They keep their mouth shut, because they're not going to come back every 3 weeks and say, oh, it's all right, your drug tests were negative. Yeah. They don't say anything, but they do say something if there's an adverse analytical finding. In this instance, there was. In this instance, UKAD made the British Boxing Board of Control aware, and that was it.
Right.
Apparently, according to everybody that's been asked about it, nobody else knew, apart from the British Boxing Board of Control, UKAD, and Amir Khan was made aware. That's it. Nobody else was made aware of this after it happened. So it's a mess. Again, it's after the Conor Benn situation. In the UFC, that it's a different organisation, it's a different setup, but there is a testing body that tests fighters randomly. It's not perfect, but you know, all the findings go to the UFC. The UFC then ban them, and it's a much more seamless process. We've talked about this before, sort of bringing boxing under sort of one governing body and making sure that there's accountability, no matter who you are, no matter if you test for drugs, if you're with Eddie Hearn or Frank Warren or whoever. What state, Sam, is boxing in at the moment after the Conor Benn situation, the Amir Khan situation? Where are we at with boxing? Because it's just a mess.
Yeah, it's your prediction of UFC being the number one fight combat sport by 2030. I mean, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. Why wouldn't you? I mean, the whole system from top to bottom, right from the governing bodies through to the fighters, through to the promoters that can't, you know, dodging fights, politics. The whole sport does kind of stink, to be honest. And I don't know what kind of changes could they possibly make in order to make this a sport that's, you know, appealing again for the average person. Because you're always going to get your die-hard box fans. Like, you look at our 18er, obviously, he'll probably always love boxing, and fair play to him.
And the thing is, Sam, so do I.
Yeah.
You know, deep down, I love boxing. When it gets in the ring, I love boxing. It's just everything outside of it, it's like you say, absolutely stinks. In terms of promotion, in terms of promoters and belts, that will never change. That just is how it is. The WBC, the WBA, the WBO, the IBF.
All the belts.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Will never happen. Will never happen. Unless something like Saudi Arabia comes along and says, right, we're starting our own boxing league. We're going to pay you vast sums of money. You're going to have one world champion in every single division. And we're going to bring it all in. We're going to drug test it. And we're going to set it up similar to the UFC. That's the only way that I can see something like that happening. Unfortunately, it would have to be somebody like Saudi Arabia, because ultimately these guys are prize fighters, and they're only going to leave their promoters and they're only going to leave their belts behind if it makes sense money wise. And at the moment, that's where the money is. So it's that bit's not going to change. What ultimately definitely needs to change is drug testing. That needs to change, because we are going to get it sooner rather than later that somebody's going to test positive for an illegal substance, and then they're going to do some serious life-changing damage to one of their opponents.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. Spencer Oliver, former boxer, had a very, very serious injury and had to retire very young. He's a TalkSport pundit. He made the prediction on their podcast the other day that 50% of active boxers are probably on PEDs. That is a scary number, but probably one that's maybe even a little bit understated. So they need to set up a testing program that all of the governing bodies agree to and have to sign up to. British Boxing Board of Control, Nevada State Athletic Commission, all of these different boards must sign up to this testing program in order to be able to put your events and your bouts on. And that's the way that I think it should be. And I think that is achievable. In terms of the drug testing, that can be ripped up and that can be replaced with something a little bit more robust. But in terms of dodging fights and stuff like that, unfortunately, that is here to stay, and unfortunately, that will never change.
I just think a bit more clarity in the whole process, not just the testing. And I'm talking about even when it comes to booking fights. I know there's a lot of things, confidentiality. We heard off Usyk's corner that obviously Fury's demands were as long as my arm of everything he wanted for this fight, plus the 70-30 split. I just think if we knew, I think leave him out to, as Simon Jordan likes to say, the court of public opinion. I think that's where these fighters make their living, essentially, in that domain. And I think if everything's just a bit more clear and a bit more open about it, I think that would massively, increase the quality of the sport.
Yeah, but again, when people say, like Frank Warren, say that we can't discuss these things, it's confidentiality. It is, and I understand why he says that. There's a lot of confidential things within a contract. How much a fighter is getting paid and stuff like that it is confidential to a certain extent. There's a lot of stuff that goes into legally binding contracts with fighters that are confidential. I think a little bit more honesty would be much appreciated, but I kind of see boxing as a bit of a lost battle, to be honest with you. I feel like it's gone too far down the road. There's been too many people greasing their own pockets in the past. Boxing back in the day was very, very popular with mobsters for fixing fights and, making a lot of money. So that gives you an idea as to the roots of the sport. So I don't think it's ever going to change. And I just thank my lucky stars that something like the UFC exists, because it's a much truer. It's got its faults. Fighter pay is really poor in the UFC, and I'll be the first person to admit that. But it as a viewer, much more appealing to watch, and it's a much better sport to follow outside of the cage as well. Which I'm going to move on to very quickly before we shift on. UFC 287 this weekend from Miami, Florida, United States. We are back. Israel Adesanya, the former middleweight champion of the world, takes on Alex Pereira for the middleweight championship, the undisputed middleweight championship in the main event. Gilbert Burns takes on Jorge Masvidal in the welterweight co-main event. Jorge Masvidal has said that if he loses this fight, he will be retiring. I think that is very likely to happen. I think as soon as a fighter starts throwing the R word around there, you are likely to see a diminished performance from that fighter as well. We also do have Rob Font against Adrian Yanez, Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and opening the main card is Paul Rosas Jr. against Christian Rodriguez, with Kelvin Gastelum and Chris Curtis headlining the preliminary card. So it's going to be a fantastic event this weekend. Israel Adesanya against Pereira is a fight that's happened now 4 times after this weekend, twice in kickboxing, once now in MMA, but this weekend it will be twice. Alex Pereira has won all 3 fights so far with his superior power, the bigger man, and seems to have Israel Adesanya's number. I think that will possibly happen and probably happen again this weekend. I would love to see Israel Adesanya get the job done, but unfortunately can't see that happening. But it's going to be a fantastic event. Very, very much looking forward to it, and bring on the UFC this weekend to release me from all the shitty boxing controversy that's happened over the past few weeks. Adam Marsden.
Yeah, thanks, Kemp, for a great breakdown of boxing, or the latest from boxing, and of course from the UFC as well. Just before we do go on to the Darts Premier League, I'll just give a quick, as brief as I can, review of what happened in Australia in the third week of the 2023 Formula One season, because it was chaotic from start to finish. Just before I do go through it, I'm assuming neither of you two are aware of what's gone off.
No, mate, talk us through it. You know what we're like. We're not really big on F1 here.
Well, Kemp's just giving me a funny look as if to say, why would you even think I know?
Did Jenson Button or Mark Webber win?
There you go. No, mate. Jenson Button was on commentary for it, and it was great to hear from him as well.
Oh.
So, as you may recall, what happened in Abu Dhabi for Max Verstappen's first World Championship, the rules were bent ever so slightly for the last lap of the race, allowing him to challenge Lewis Hamilton and eventually overtake him, win the race and win his first World Championship. Lewis Hamilton fans still feel that championship is tainted and therefore not even his, so they class Lewis Hamilton as an 8-time world champion, even though it's not technically correct. On this occasion, the rules were bent once again, this time again to favour Max Verstappen, but it was Lewis Hamilton that was in second place. So as the race continued, you'd got 3 red flags for the first time in a Formula One race history. There were 3 red flags. There was 8 DNFs, 3 not classified. George Russell's car set on fire and had to park up in the pit lane on lap 17. There was also Alex Albon and Charles Leclerc out by that point as well. The rest finished within the last 6 or 7 laps of the race. So there was an incident that saw Kevin Magnussen crash out. And as his tyre came off as he hit the wall, it started bouncing down the track. So the safety was, let's get everybody back to the pit lane and let's stop it there. That stopped after a couple of laps of the safety car. They allowed everyone back out around 20 minutes later once the debris had been cleared up to allow things to get back underway. And within the following 4 laps, it was absolute chaos. On lap 56, 4 cars ended up crashing out from the restart, 2 of which were from the same team taking each other out. So it was Ocon and Gasly from Alpine that took each other out. Logan Sargent and Nick De Vries both making their debut seasons in Formula One, also amongst the incidents there. They then decided to finish the race under the safety car. Now, this is where it really becomes controversial because this didn't have to happen. They chose in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago to finish the safety car a lap early. And of course, it led to Max Verstappen overtaking Lewis Hamilton. On this occasion, they chose not to do that. They chose to leave the safety car out and finish the race under the safety car, which meant Lewis Hamilton didn't have the opportunity to overtake Max Verstappen, which means for the second time this season, Max Verstappen wins. For the third time this season, Red Bull win, and the domination within Formula One continues as it stands at the moment. The standings does leave Red Bull at the top. It also leaves Max Verstappen at the top as he continues his surge to go for 3 consecutive world championships and tries to catch up Lewis Hamilton's 7 as well. We now get a wonderful little month's break. We get all the excitement for Formula One being built up. Then we get a week's break before we get another race, then another week's break, and then a month's break before we get another one. So it doesn't allow you to build the momentum on a consecutive basis, but I guess going to the other side of the country in Australia will do that. That's the latest from the Formula One. So, Kemp, we can wake you up now. We're coming back into darts. You'll be pleased to know. Darts Premier League. You two played darts last weekend, didn't you? Was it last weekend?
Checked what I check out on the 7th.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's hear a bit more about this.
So played darts at the weekend. We went to go and watch the Alfreton Town game, bit of non-league football over the weekend. Myself and Sam went to visit the Impact Arena for a few games of darts and a couple of beers beforehand. Sam got the overall win, which played to Sam. Congratulations. But I feel like I took the moment of the day checking 100%. Out on 71.
100%. I wouldn't say moment of the day. I wouldn't say moment of the
darts session.
Yeah. Moment of the darts. The moment of the day has to go for Super Matt Reed with his bullet header for Alfreton Town.
Yeah, not bad.
I think your quote of I think the tide's gone out on his hair was a bit of my my personal.
Yeah.
Personal
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the best way to describe it. I think he needs to take a leaf out of my book, if I'm honest. But there you go. We'll move on from that. And his glorious hair meant that he got a fantastic header and scored a good goal for Alfreton to come away 2-0 winners and to sneak into the playoff places. So up the often, and we'll be keeping an eye on you for the rest of the season, most definitely.
If nobody's actually seen what happened on that little day trip that you two went on, they can go onto our TikTok and they'll be able to see a nice little review from start to finish, from the darts session all the way through to seeing Bobby Charlton, was it?
Yes, up the Bobby.
Bobby Charlton get a goal right at the end as Alfreton got a 2-0 win. So moving on to the Darts Premier League, we are about just over the halfway stage now, having nine having finished just recently. And just looking at the leaderboard at the moment, it isn't looking good. It hasn't been looking good for a long time now. For my prediction of Peter Wright, I think we can safely call that one out. He's got 2 points, and that does not look like changing any time soon. It looks like it is going to be a battle at the top between Kemp and Skins predictions, Gerwin Price and Michael Van Gerwen, the top two at the moment.
Yeah, delighted to say that Gerwin Price seems to be coming into his own these past few weeks, which I'm pretty delighted with. I think Van Gerwen sat on 25 points and Gerwin sat on 20, 3 nights, 1 apiece. So that's looking pretty good for us. Did you go Chris Dobie, Sam? Did you at the start?
I did.
No,
I did.
Mate. To be fair,
Mate, don't laugh.
Chris Dobie's doing better than Adam's prediction is. With Peter Wright winning, I think it's 1 game throughout the entire Premier League season so far. So, yeah, it's looking positive for myself and Dawson. I think it'll be a shootout right till the very end, but Loaded Sport will also be there to see it live and in living colour.
Just obviously from someone who's only just getting into darts here. I understand there's a playoffs obviously towards the end of it. What's that? Top 4? Top what?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, the playoffs are 1st versus 4th, and then 2nd versus 3rd.
Oh, it is top 4 then, yeah.
And then the winners of those two will play each other in the last game. That happens on the 25th of May at the O2 Arena in London. So yeah, it sort of comes away from the original format. You've got the 4 games and then the winners play each other. It comes away from that format and it moves into the 1st versus 4th, 2nd versus 3rd, and then the winners of the 1st semi-final and the 2nd semi-final will battle it out to be crowned the Premier League champion this season.
Just to mention what you said about Peter Wright, you've actually got a higher checkout and more leg wins since the start of the Darts Premier League than Peter Wright has.
Oh, me? Or Kempy?
Both of you.
What's his highest checkout?
I don't know, mate. I was making that up to make you feel better.
Right.
But you've definitely won more legs than him. He's won 1 leg this entire tournament, and that is poor for somebody of his standard. But just looking at
I thought he'd won a game.
He has won a game.
He's won one game, which is poor by his standard, considering, with all due respect to others who he's been going up against, and so how the round robin, the table, if you will, has worked out for him. Just looking at the league table now, you can see that Van Gerwen and Gerwin Price, top 2, they're through. You can pretty much say that they're going to be in the semi-finals. It's still kind of heating up between Michael Smith, Nathan Aspinall, Johnny Clayton, who won, of course, last week in Berlin, and Chris Dobie. I think any of those 4 could still make it. And then, of course, Van der Berg and Peter Wright are just going to battle for the wooden spoon if there's even a battle to go out there.
I think Dobie will do well to get into there. I think I'm looking more Aspinall or Clayton. Excuse me. I can't really see Dobie clawing that 5-point gap back. But I know obviously at the time of recording, a peek behind the curtain, as Kemp likes to say.
I've said it for about 3 months. Everyone else keeps saying it.
He has obviously gone out in the first round, so that's him not putting any points on the board tonight either. So I think Dobie will do well here to pull that back myself.
Yeah, me personally, I completely agree. I think it's between Michael Smith, Nathan Aspinall and Johnny Clayton. I think with Michael Smith's experience, with him coming off that World Championship win, I think he got off to a little bit of a slow start. But I think towards the back end of the Premier League season, I think he will have enough to make it into that top 4. And then for me, it's between Nathan Aspinall and Johnny Clayton. I think that'll be a really hard-fought battle. I would be delighted to see Johnny Clayton in there. It's a new name in the darts world. It's a new opportunity and a new person to get themselves a little bit of a shine. But pulling to my head now, I think the top 4 as it is, Van Gerwen, Price, Michael Smith and Nathan Aspinall. Likelihood is that they'll probably be the top 4 at the end of the season as well, in my opinion. But we'll see.
I mean, you say that Nathan Aspinall's yet to actually win a night, hasn't he? At least Clayton's got that under his belt. Was that the one? Was it Munich he won? Germany,
yeah, I think.
Yeah,
I think
Clayton
so,
did last week.
Yeah. But I mean, he has. But point to what matters. And Nathan Aspinall's won more games. He's got a better leg differential as well, I believe. So, or has he got worse?
No, he hasn't. It's minus 12 to minus 8.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, minus 12. Yeah, minus 12 to minus 8. So, yeah, but again, he's got more points on the board. That's what matters. But yeah, Johnny Clayton could absolutely do it. Sam, you're absolutely right.
I don't know why you're both writing Chris Dobey off so much, though. Based upon what, sorry to interrupt, Kemp, but what you've just been saying there about some of the leg differential, the games won. Dobey's won a night. Yeah, Aspinall hasn't. But like you say, he's got more points.
Adam, have you got a twin? Oh my God! Oh no!
Am I right in thinking we've got a special guest announcement?
Oh God!
Aye, all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, live from Cleethorpes, it's Mr. Ben Dawson.
Mr. Dawson's joined us live from the Cleethorpes seafront. Dear, oh dear, how's that happened?
Well, this is the story. Just dropped on the. I hope you can hear me all right, because the signal's absolutely shocking. But we've just got to entertain.
Oh dear.
Little pie, and kids want Burger King, so I thought, while I'm walking to get Burger King, jump in, see how everyone's going, see what we're having a talking about.
Yeah, I must admit, mate, your internet's pretty poor. We can't really hear much what you're saying, to be honest with you.
I'll leave it then. Love you.
Mate. Thanks for coming, though. Cheers. So there you go. A very muffled and mumbled appearance there by Ben Dawson. Adam, carry on your point. Apologies. You were saying about Johnny Clayton.
I just don't see why you're writing Dobey off so much. Yeah. He's only won 2 less games than what Aspinall has, and he's got the better leg differential. So with 4 or 5 weeks still left to go before it really becomes you must win, there's no reason why he can't get enough points on the board to really be challenging Aspinall and Clayton. I don't understand why you're writing him off.
No, there's no particular reason, but it's a lot of this does come down to experience as well. It's difficult. This Premier League format, it's not just a tournament where you G yourself up for one night and really get yourself going and have a really good night of darts or a really good couple of nights of darts, and then you get through to a later stage. It's over a course of many, many weeks, and it's a long slog. And Van Gerwen, Price, Michael Smith, these guys have all been there before, up and down the road, travelling to and from home. It's not an easy thing to do. So, in my opinion, that's the reason. It'll just come down to a lack of experience at the end of the day. But ultimately, I would love to see him there, Adam. I really would.
Yeah, I'd like to see him there as well. I'm just thinking, first night he won. Wasn't it a couple of weeks ago he beat Van Gerwen? Was it 6-0 he beat him by?
Yeah, whitewashed him.
So if he's got the momentum on his side, if he can get that get rid of the nerves that he's going to be getting in some of these appearances, then I don't see why he can't. So I
get your logic, mate. I just think, obviously, if it had any kind of momentum, it'd have been showing it by now. Like you say, it just come off the back of that big win against Van Gerwen, and then he's already out tonight at first round. I just think, I think it'd need to be showing something now, and I think it's just 5 points is a big gap to make up at this point in the season, I reckon. But who knows? You're right not to write him off for sure, but.
There's still plenty of darts to be played, and like you say, he's already lost to Michael Van Gerwen on night 10, so there you go. Night 10 is
logic there, just a rhetorical question more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Dimitri van der Berg's on 9 points, Chris Dobey's on 10, he's 1 point behind, but you're saying that he was going to be fighting for the wooden spoon, yet you've got Chris Dobey having a great chance at the playoffs.
Yeah, he's already won a night. I don't believe Van der Berg has.
No, but he's on 9 points and Chris Dobey's on 10.
Yeah, just 1 point difference. There's still a lot of that. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Maybe Van der Berg's still got an opportunity there. The only person I dare say doesn't is the one guy that I've gone for and really into.
Classic Aggie, that.
Who else really cares? So going on to night 10 then, having a look at how it's set up. Michael Van Gerwen against Chris Dobie, Aspinall against Clayton, Van der Berg against Gerwin Price, Peter Wright against Michael Smith. So that is your setup. Kemp, we'll start with you. Who do you think is going to be walking out night 10 as the winner?
Not Dobie, after I've already spoiled that one.
Well, I was just about to say Sam has kindly provided us with a little bit of an update as to what's going on there. I believe that's the only game that's taken place so far. Sam, am I right in thinking that, or have we had a couple of games so far?
No, I think Aspinall against Clayton is almost done.
No, I think that has done.
Has done,
yeah. Clayton's beat Aspinall at 6-4, and then we are currently halfway through Price Van der Berg, your boy.
How are we getting on there?
Price is up 4-3, and he's on serve, so to speak.
Right, okay, it says honours. Okay. I will go with Michael Smith today. Michael Smith. I think I've got a sneaky feeling that Gerwin Price may not win that first game. I don't know why. I've got something in my waters. I might be completely wrong, and I hope I am. But I think Michael Smith might just do it. I think he's due a bit of a victory. I don't think he's had one for a few weeks, and like I say, he will be there in the upper echelons of the table at the end of the season, at the end of the Premier League darts, and you've got to rack up some night wins to do that. So, Michael Smith, this might be your night, sunshine.
I do apologise, by the way. I've just looked. It's now refreshed. It's actually 5-5, and Van der Berg is actually throwing for the game. So, so yeah, he's got a chance to beat Price here.
There you go. And if he does, then I definitely fancy Michael Smith over Dimitri Van der Berg in the semi-final, and then the final. Who knows what will happen? So yeah, I'm going Michael Smith.
Sam?
Yeah. You know what? I think I'm going to back him. I'm going to double down on Michael Smith there. I was leaning towards Price actually when I seen he was up and throwing, on serve, as I say, but no, I think Kempy will be onto that one with Michael Smith win tonight.
Okay, I'm looking more at Michael Van Gerwen. I think that side of the door has been very kind to him. I also think when he's had a nice little easy route to the final, he doesn't really need to step up, does he, until he gets to the final. And there it will be the Gerwin Price or Michael Smith, I think, that he meets there. I'm hoping now I haven't jinxed that and it isn't going to be a Van der Berg win by the time we've even finished recording this. But yeah, I'm going to stand by Michael Van Gerwen to win in night 10. So just before we go on to discuss the NFL, because we know it's very close to draft day and there's a lot of trade talk still going on, there is the Masters taking place, which I believe is best suited to Kempy taking the lead.
Oh, baby, it's Masters weekend. We've waited a long, long time, it seems, to get into this conversation. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of darts. Always is kind of the kick-off for the summer of darts is the Masters, and it's got off to a pretty decent start as well. We've had a few tee-offs, a few guys teeing off so far. I'll just get the table up now. I'm not 100% sure who's at the top of the leaderboard at the moment, but
Hovland at the minute.
I can safely say it's looking pretty good for Mudge, because Hovland is at the top of the leaderboard at the moment. I think he's coming in at a decent little score at the moment on 7 under, I think. So, he's doing pretty well. John Rahm on second, Brashung on third, Lowry on tied fourth with Schauffele. So it's going to be a good weekend of darts. We've got some fantastic
good weekend of golf as well.
We've got sorry?
Going to be a good weekend of golf as well.
Yeah, golf, darts. I've drunk too many beers already. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of golf and darts. But yeah, we've got some really, really good players going round. We've got some old school Molinari. We've got Mickelson going round as well. We've got Tiger Woods going round. I think he was 3 over by the last time I saw. So not looking great for Tiger Woods so far, but first big tournament of the year in the darts world, and looking forward to seeing who comes out on top. It's going to be a fantastic weekend of darts. Hovland's got a good start, but plenty of golf still to be played. So, looking forward to it. Did I say darts again?
You said it 3 times.
Did I say darts again?
Yeah, you did. It's going to be a great weekend of darts. There's plenty of golf to be played.
I can't get darts off my head. I can't get darts out of my head. I'm so balls deep in Michael Smith winning.
leaves me with a nice segue to breaking news. So Price has just beat Van der Berg 6-5. So yeah, it's a little update.
Might have got a letter there then. So completely forget everything I said about the Masters. That entire segment was about darts, and Gerwyn Price is going to win because I'm never wrong.
Who have you got winning the Masters?
Who do I see is winning?
Yeah.
Hart says Fitzpatrick because I've had him on the sweepstake, and he's also a Sheffield United fan. So what can you do? Head says it's a tough one. I think McIlroy could do it.
Ooh.
I think Rory McIlroy could definitely do it. I watched him on the range earlier on today. He looked very confident. He looks big. Looks like he's bulked up over the winter, which is interesting. He might be able to drive the ball 10, 15 yards further, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't know. I've just got a funny feeling that Rory McIlroy could have a good year this year. So Rory McIlroy will win the Masters. Golf, not darts.
Nicely done. Right, let's move on to the NFL then, because Sam, this is your big moment regarding Aaron Rodgers. I saw something earlier. There's been loads of talk about Rodgers going to the Jets, but I saw earlier a bit of information about if it doesn't happen, the Niners are interested.
Terrible idea. Terrible. I think that's one thing we can't let happen. Packers and Niners have always had a bit of a thing. It's gone back years, that has, and obviously from Rodgers' standpoint, it makes perfect sense for him because he's from Cali. He grew up a Niners fan. It's probably his dream fit. If you really asked him without the cameras there, he probably would admit he would probably prefer to go to San Fran over at Jets, I would imagine. But from the Packers standpoint, as an organisation, I don't think they can let that happen. I've got a feeling, now this is me speculating here, I think the Packers are bluffing with this one. I think they're just letting the Jets know that the Jets aren't the only destination that they're willing to trade. And I think they're kind of using San Fran as a bit of trade bait here in order to leverage, because at the minute, excuse me, they have lost a little bit of leverage with the whole Lamar Jackson debacle and saga. So obviously he's now free. It's publicly known he's requested a trade. Didn't really need to apparently under that franchise tag because it wouldn't be an exclusive tag. He still had the rights to discuss deals with other teams. So I think the Jets kind of let the Packers know that he's an option for them, and the Packers have then turned around and brought San Fran into the mix. I just think it's all a bit messy now, and it needs to be done. It needs to be done very soon. The draft's coming up shortly, and the Packers are obviously digging their heels in. They're wanting as much draft capital as possible. I think for this draft and next draft thing, that's what they're looking like. They're definitely wanting. It's looking like it originally was a minimum of a first round pick, and now all of a sudden I think they've backtracked slightly and they're saying, okay, we'll take a second. However, there's going to have to be some picks further down the line, and then now the Jets are digging their heels in, saying, well, we all know what Rodgers has been like over the last couple of years. We know he's not really reliable for his word. We know last week 18 could be his last week, and he'll just walk off into the sunset. And they'll obviously spend first or second round pick on a player that's going to be there for a year, which is obviously something they want to safeguard against. So I think there's conditional picks further down the line where they're saying if he reaches 2024, 2025, they'll increase this second round pick to a first round pick. So I think that's an option. I just think there potentially could be a couple of players moving about between the deal. I think that might sweeten it for the Packers especially, but the whole thing has dragged on for about a week too long now for me. And I get it. It's a massive decision for both franchises, probably more for the Jets really, because they want to make sure they've got the guy. I just think they've been so public about it that I don't think that they've got as much leverage as they think they have, especially with the fact that the Packers have already got their guy. They've already said they're happy to roll with Jordan Love now. So they'd be quite happy just to sit Rodgers on bench for a year and probably eat the cap. And then next year, obviously, either offload him or whatever. But it's a sticky situation. Obviously, the Jets, like I say, publicly, they've flown out to Cali to meet with Rodgers, and that there was caught. Rodgers was laughing about it on the Pat McAfee show, saying they weren't exactly discreet about it, and they got caught. Paparazzi on the streets outside Rodgers' flat, and they went to dinner, got blown up, and obviously Rodgers to the Jets hit the mainstream media. But yeah, it needs to come to an end. When did we say the draft? Is it about 3 weeks' time now?
3 weeks today.
Yeah, it can't go up to the draft night. It really can't go. That just leaves a really bad preparation on what we're planning to do. Well, again, both teams, Jets and Packers. Let's get this wrapped up because it's been an ongoing saga now. That's run its course, I think.
So my first question for you as a Green Bay fan, then, Rodgers going. What's your thoughts on Jordan Love getting the starting role?
Difficult to say, isn't it? With Jordan Love, we've not seen a great deal from him. The bits we have seen, it's shown okay moments. It's also shown some really bad moments too. So I think it's only right that he does get a season, because just from a professional footballer standpoint, I think it's quite harsh that we've essentially drafted him and just completely had him for his whole rookie contract and has not even seen the field essentially. So I think that's harsh on him. We've potentially ruined a player's career. If he's wasted the first 5 years of his career. So I think we owe it to Jordan Love to play him for this season. And then you've got a year's worth of footage on him. You'd back him to have a lot more knowledge of the offense compared to a regular rookie. Obviously, a rookie comes in, they've got to learn the offense, they've got to learn the ways of the NFL, learn to take a hit and all that. He hasn't got to do all that. He's been training with NFL players for the last 4 years now, so there is that side of it. So it should be a matter of plug and play. Don't get me wrong, I'm under absolutely no illusions that the production's going to be anywhere near what Rodgers has in the past. But Rodgers' production last year was massively down on years prior. I mean, you look, I haven't got his stats up for last year, to be fair, but if you look at his interceptions alone for last year, I think they were at least double. I think what he had the year when he won the MVP back to back. But so yeah, I think give me a year. I'm quite looking forward to it. I must admit, I think it's quite an exciting time, because if we've clearly shown we've gone all in like 3 times now with Rodgers over the last 5 years, and we've come up short every single time. So it's time to throw out the old playbook, start again, build up from scratch. We've got a couple of key pieces especially on defense as well. We've got Jair Alexander, got Kenny Clark. We've got obviously a young linebacker. His name's not coming to me. A young linebacker we drafted first round last year. So yeah, I think the future is bright in Green Bay. I don't think you look at someone like the Bears. They haven't got any pieces whatsoever, bar maybe Justin Fields. On what, so I think we do have a lot of positives. Again, look, someone like Texans, they've got no players whatsoever. We do have players. It's just that we're in a bit of a cap nightmare at the minute. And I think once Rodgers goes, that frees up a hell of a lot of room for us to. And obviously, we've also looking at getting rid of David Bakhtiari as well. And I'm all for that. Again, it's probably the best when fit. It's probably the best left tackle in football, not named Trent Williams. So yeah, it's time to get rid of him. I mean, I think he's missed 2 years worth of football in the last 3 or something like that. So we've made the playoffs in pretty much every year that he's been out. So bar last year, obviously. So I think it's time to say goodbye to him, which would be a sad day because he's a good locker room guy apparently, and all the Packer fans love him, especially at local one. There's always been seen at Milwaukee Buck games, chugging his beers and things like that. He's a bit of a local legend up there, but. Yeah, I think it's time just to throw the old guard out and usher in the new.
I thought you were going to say Millwall games then.
Nice.
Imagine. My last question on the Aaron Rodgers saga for at least this week. You've mentioned about how Green Bay are wanting at least a first-round pick, and there's been loads of back and forth between them and the Jets. If you're in Green Bay's situation now, what are you asking for?
I mean, I personally still want a first rounder myself. If I'm playing Madden, and I know it's not played on Madden, I'm wanting at least a first round pick. I think he's instantly going to upgrade that entire roster. We know what he does with bang average receivers. The Jets haven't actually got bang average receivers. They've got decent receivers. They've obviously got Garrett Wilson, the rookie, who looks like a world beater. They've got brought in Alan Lazard, who's a cracking blocking receiver. So I think he's going to elevate everyone around him, and I do think with Rodgers, I think they make the playoffs pretty comfortably. I think New England will probably, dare I say, finish bottom of the NFC East, AFC East, should I say, and I probably have the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins maybe vying out for the top spot. So yeah, the first round. Sorry, what were you asking for the price? Yeah, first rounder, but I think the conditional pick's probably the way to go now. I think maybe if we take a second this year and maybe a second next year, but that second next year can evolve into a first round pick if it makes it into the second year. I think that will probably be the way to go. And then at the end of the day, we've got a second and a first room, which is the same we got for Devontae Adams, who was banging his prime. So yeah, that'd be my way of thinking.
Yeah, that's fair. Lads, that is all we've got time for this week, or we've got to discuss as well. Just before we do leave it, I just want to mention, we spoke a little bit off air about the background that I've got. I wanted to mention last week, but I haven't got around to mentioning that poster in Kemp's background.
I don't think it's a poster, is it? I think it's some collectible.
He's got two posters there that I'm a huge fan of, the Pokemon posters. Framed posters as well, yeah.
You're gonna have to talk up, Kemp, because you're not going to be on camera, mate.
It's all right. No, it's all right. I muted myself anyway to let you crack on with Aaron Rodgers. It's the old Gen 2 one. So anybody that played Pokemon Gold and Silver, got the old Gen 2 Pokemon on there for you. And then the OGs.
Yeah, this is my bag. This is my bag.
So the OGs at the top, we've got the old Charmander and the Charmeleons. There we go at the top there. Adam, I know you're a big fan.
I am,
get as many predictions, lock scorers, wild cards right as me, Sunshine. You might be able to afford them one day.
Ooh. Nicely done. Kemp, Sam, thank you very much for joining me to go through this week on Loaded Sport.
Adam, tell us where you can find us on social media before we go.
I haven't got a bloody clue, mate.
Shall I do it then? It's Instagram loaded. It's Instagram loaded_sport. Okay, I got through that one a lot quicker than Dawson gets through that one.
Yeah, you've done well there.
Twitter is @loadedsport. TikTok, Sam?
No idea.
We're great. We're so good at this.
You can tell that Instagram and Twitter are my only go-tos. TikTok, I shall tell you in a second what our @ is on Loaded Sport. We are just, I believe, @Loaded Sport on TikTok. Yes, we are Loaded Sport on TikTok.
Clean.
And I believe on Facebook it's the Loaded Sport fan community bollocks. I think not Facebook. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's the Loaded Sport community page.
Loaded Sport community page. So there we go. So if you want to follow us, find us on all our social media platforms, and have a good evening, everyone.
We butchered that. Cheers, boys. Have a good evening.